Going into the offseason, the Cubs have a lot of question marks as far as their bullpen is concerned moving forward. We're going to talk about some of those guys that were injured. Some had surgery, give you an update on all the Cubs' arms that are right now trying to get back healthy. At least a few of those guys we'll get into right here on the Cubs Baseball channel. Like and subscribe. Give us a thumbs up. Thanks for being here. Show's brought to you by the Tennessee Smokies, champions of the Southern League. Get your Smokies swag, the Cubs AA affiliate, at smokiesbaseball.com/store. I think the big debate was how David Ross used the bullpen. Adbert Alzolay getting hurt last year definitely derailed the Cubs' chances a little bit to make the postseason. Boxberger had some issues and some other guys back and forth. But one of the main cogs that we thought was going to be a big part of the bullpen this year, Michael Fulmer, is having elbow revision surgery. And Chad, this isn't Tommy John, but it's something else similar. He's going to miss all of next season. So won't have him back.
And that you're talking about a guy that when the Cubs signed him, he was just going to be a major staple, in that bullpen. You go back and look at the history. He was rookie of the year in 2016 for the Detroit Tigers. Now, I don't have this stat in front of me, but Mick, how often does a relief pitcher get rookie of the year in Major League Baseball? Like that, you have to really, really stand out. And when you go back and look at some of those seasons, we're talking about guys who, that year, of course, he went 11-7, had a ton of starts. And then moved into the bullpen. But you look at, as an all-star in 2017, then he made his way through and gets signed by the Cubs. And he was just such a spectacular piece that everybody was looking forward to. And that was the case. Bullpens can hurt. You can look at the playoffs now and playoff baseball. Bullpens, that's where people get tripped up a lot of times because starters just don't go very deep in playoff baseball. So your bullpen is really becomes one of the big staples and a strength of the team if you want to make a run. And the Cubs had a lot of really good names and players and talent set up there. Fulmer, Alzolay, Boxberger that you mentioned. Those are just three. And then they had other guys who played really well. Mark Leiter Jr. had a lot of great outings this year, but it just ended up being just another injury piece. That's kind of bitten the Cubs in years past, and it did again this year.
Another guy to keep an eye on, Cody Hoyer. He came over from the White Sox. He's rehabbing from Tommy John, hasn't pitched since 2021. Could he return in 2024?
Yeah, that's one that, we'll find out and see. That's one he had a little bit of a setback in Iowa with his AAA assignment.
Yeah, that was bad.
A few months ago in the summer. And that's one of those things, right? When it rains, it pours. And it just gets worse and worse and worse for the Cubs. And so, the bullpen, it's one of those things where the bullpens are so weird in Major League Baseball, right? Because there's a lot of shuffling. You just look back and you see those are a lot of 1 and 2 year deals. It's a lot of free agent signing. It's a lot of bringing guys up, developing, giving them some big league innings. And the Cubs, have done a good job. They've had years where the bullpen actually hung in there and kept the team going in a lot of games and a lot of pieces of the season. But this year was a lot of injuries and people had tons of high hopes. Mm-hmm. And I look at Fulmer, even though we're picking on starters here, but I kind of compare what Fulmer went through in Cubs fans' minds to Jameson Taillon, where you bring a guy in, you pay some money for him. It's a big name. Maybe the Cubs traded for him, but you bring a guy in Fulmer And the Cubs are looking at it going, all right, this is like a shutdown type guy. This guy
Right.
is so good. He proved himself in Detroit originally as a starter, transitioned into the bullpen, and then just became that guy that, wasn't the case. And then he gets injured. Same with Tyon, a lot of high expectations, high hopes, didn't get injured, but pitched well at the end of the year. So again, just more bad luck, I guess, but it's just more work also for Jed Hoyer and the Cubs front office to work on in the offseason.
A couple other guys to keep an eye on. Ethan Roberts came up through the Cubs system. This is a guy that I remember watching and really hope that he gets back. I really like him. And then a guy who I was kind of hoping would return this year from the knee injury, and that's left-hander Brandon Hughes. He was such a surprise to the Cubs a year ago. Yep. And then just, when you got bad wheels, it's different than having arm issues. In some ways, it's better because you're not affecting your arm, but at the same time, if you don't have the push off or the landing, then it definitely affects the way that you're able to go out there and get outs.
Yeah, for sure. And we talked about this. Not that there's a lot of Mariano Rivera's out there or anything, but the bullpen and some of these injuries and having some consistency. It's something the Cubs just haven't had the luxury of in recent years. And so it'll be nice to see if the Cubs can get through a full season. And also, we've given Rossi sometimes a hard time on the management and the expectations and the number of innings and the number of outings and how many days rest and all these different things. And coming down the stretch in the month of September, I think some of those things, reared their ugly head. But it'll just be something to keep an eye on and how they're treated next year, because you just can't be put in that position year in, year out.
Right. And we'll keep updating. I mean, there's going to be more information on different pitchers and what the Cubs are planning on doing to rebuild that bullpen. Relief pitching it's constantly evolving.
Yeah.
And the Cubs could be in the mix for Matsui, the superstar Japanese closer that is posting and is going to come to America. And that could be something else that we'll get into in the weeks to come. But it'll be interesting to see, maybe having Seiya Suzuki on the team will help the Cubs when they're trying to entice a closer from Japan to come. And these guys from Japan are coming in and they're making an impact. And I think it's really exciting when you get a player that comes over. And I love the culture, the baseball culture that Japanese baseball players have. And I think it's going to be something that probably helps the Cubs clubhouse. You get a couple Japanese guys. You already have one. And they really start to influence the way that the team prepares and the way that they go out there and play. And I think it's going to be interesting to see where Matsui ends up. But the Cubs are going to be in the mix for him.
Yeah, him, and then also on the starter side, you got Yamamoto that could come over. And you think back, I mean, there have been some success stories. Remember Daisuke, who was Boston Red Sox earlier in his career. Yu Darvish has had an outstanding career. Spent some of that time in Chicago with the Cubs. There's a lot more. Those are just two that kind of hit me off the top of the head that are a little more recent. Daisuke's a little older, but we'll see what happens. The Cubs, we've talked about this. They're a big market. So the Cubs, though, haven't really hit that big home run splash on some of those when it comes to the international signings. Seiya, of course, was a good signing, but he wasn't to the level that maybe you're seeing some of these others with Ohtani and Yamamoto. And of course, Ohtani's been in the league for a few years now, but it'll be really interesting to see what kind of money is thrown around and at some of these players and their transition, across the Pacific over to Major League Baseball.
Guys, we'll keep you updated here on the Cubs baseball channel. If you're a middle reliever with good sink and get outs, or if you can come in to the ninth inning and get us a victory, if you're like Lee Smith, then we need you right here on the Cubs Baseball channel. Like, subscribe, give us a thumbs up if you enjoy our videos, and go Cubs.